What Frederick say? Check it yourself. He didn't say that. He didn't say that. Somebody wants. I can check myself.
Your service, where should I be sitting?
Wherever you want to sit is fine.
Because then if nobody comes,
So I'll follow Dena. Fred, we're waiting for Fred. Oh, Luana. Wow, what a time.
Thank you. It's on.
obrigada.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to the last session of the day on such an amazing topic. So my name is Camila Sanders. I am founder and CEO of Greater Than Equal, and I work at the intersection of sustainability, technology, and equity. I host Fashion Futurist Podcast, AI for Creatives Podcast, and I am on the governing council of Catalyst Now. So thank you so much for putting on this amazing conversation. I am so excited. And I'm just going to jump right in. And we do have a couple of other panelists, so they'll come in and they'll join the conversation when they get here. But if you could just go and introduce yourself, talk about what organization you're from, and also talk about what business model are you using for AI and social innovation? Like, give us an example of some of the work that you do.
Shall I start? My name is James Ong. I'm from Singapore. Thank you very much for my invitations. My career started in AI about 1985, 86. That's 40 years ago as a researcher. So background is what I'm doing right now is I founded an AI think tank called Artificial Intelligence International Institute. We advocate sustainable AI for humanity since 8 years ago, looking at some of the issues that has been addressed now, because I've gone through two AI boom and one AI winter personally. So what is the business model? I believe that especially in Asia, we need to start with thought leadership first, our independent point of view. That's why I started a think tank as a model that is funded by myself with help from other people for thought leadership, followed by ecosystem engagement, using Singapore as a base, Southeast Asia, connecting to US, China, Middle East, and Europe. That's why I'm here in WEF. Last but not least, I believe in impact investment, which is Fred's books, talking about how do you make sure you have a balanced investment in terms of profit making as well as purpose. That's my business model.
Does this work? Yes. Hi, everybody. So my name is Dena Trujillo. I'm the CEO for Crisis Text Line. We are based in the US. I'm in California, but we support partners globally. So we have Kids Help Phone in Africa, Shout in the UK, spun out in Ireland, and we will be spreading to global Spanish soon this year. Hint, hint, if anybody is in Spanish-speaking Latin America and wants to partner with us, please raise your hand and come and talk to me afterwards. What Crisis Text Line is you can think of us like a mental health emergency room by text and chat. And because we have a tech platform that then has conversation data, it's really the perfect place to utilize AI. So we started I'm not as OG as you, but several years ago we started with machine learning to triage conversations so that we could identify certain word combinations to help see who needed help first, who was more likely to be have suicidal ideation or self-harm, and therefore if there happened to be a queue or a line, they needed to be connected to a volunteer as soon as possible. One of the things that technology does for us, just to give a sense, is it helps us to scale. So we have 80 clinicians that support that support 16,000 volunteers a year, and they together support 1.4 million conversations a year. And then our volunteers support at least one conversation offline within their communities. So that's how we use technology to scale. And we'll talk a little bit more about the different AI beyond triage. I'll actually give one more example. We use AI for our research. So that's everything from diving into those conversations to help make us smarter, to also being able to help train our volunteers with generative AI, with conversation simulators, and then we'll dive into more examples in a minute. All you.
Hi, everyone. Olá, tudo bem? Hey. So I'm Luana Genot, all the way from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. That's why I'm cold here, right? So that's why you see me like this. So basically, before I actually dig into the business model, I would like to highlight why we're doing what we're doing. So we always invite people to imagine a world where every single individual could thrive, regardless of the race, origin, gender. This is the world we want. Who's with me?
Yeah, of course.
Great. So I'm not by my own, right? So it's a scalable model, right? It's a scalable dream. But it's not only about dreams. It's about like business growth. So inclusion is about growth. And then just we had like this McKinsey report like saying that we could unlock $12 trillion by exactly by unlocking those opportunities, especially for marginalized communities. So I'm talking about women, I'm talking about non-white people across the globe, I'm talking about the disabled community across the globe, I'm talking about LGBTQ community, I'm talking about people that are there but are underserved. And then we can unlock those opportunities, and this is economic growth. So what I do is to help companies to realize that this is economic growth. And we are using AI recently to basically help to create safe spaces. So those who didn't feel invited to raise conversations about inclusion, they can actually use our AI. It's on Instagram at Chama a Debbie. I can write that after. It's called Debbie. It's our AI in Brazil. She speaks mostly Portuguese, but you can translate her what she says because we are basically concentrating our user experience in Brazil. But that has been helpful for us to scale our model because we did consulting for more than 700,000 employers in Brazil. And we reached out also professors in Brazil, helping them to train students about AI and racial literacy for more than 60,000 professors in Brazil. And now we are partnering with big tech to see that there is hope and collaboration to scale this model for more than 300,000 professors in Brazil. So we want to make sure that every single Brazilian has racial and digital literacy, and that can be helpful for them to navigate through this new AI, world where this information needs to arrive to people. But remember that I started with the why. So I don't think, AI will save the world, but if we know why we are using AI to do what we need to do, we can save the world. Yes.
This is, I'd like to stay for the session, but unfortunately in Davos, everything is conflicted. And I was just talking, hey, wait, why am I sitting here? I'm not supposed to be here. Anyway, it's really glad. I think it's very meaningful. And we also participated, our group, in scoping this session. And I'm a steward of a family business. Business competence is about integrating different resources, which otherwise we call management, into delivering a service, a need for humanity. AI, on the other hand, is a tool. It's a new resources that comes to us, where depending on your intention of using this tool, it can create miraculous resources in bringing both into the management system and the business model. Business model is what business do to work. which is translating to operation, translating to satisfying purpose, translating into managing efficiency, translating on the delivery mechanism of operations to the product, which is otherwise management. So AI has so much potential. If we are, for example, in our group uses AI in so many ways, and everybody knows this era, it's about using AI. You don't have to know AI. You don't have to be like James, like really into how it works. We just need to know how to use it to work for us, because it's going to keep evolving. The success will be how we use AI, the tool. It's going to be a very powerful tool that shifts civilization. It can be used on what we told that I want to develop matrix and how I can manage better to bring about social change, to bring about all the topics, as she says, and it can calibrate those matrix and feed information both internally and externally in how you do your digital assets to give you information to tweak how you manage. Powerful tool, depending on your intent and depending how to use it, it will improve humanity or even shift it. We also use an AI to facilitate and participating now into our coaching modality. So instead of a two-person coaching, we have tripartite with AI playing as the mirror coach. So lots of possibility. I hope you investigate it. I'd love to be here to do that. Unfortunately, I have to run. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fred.
I know running well. I will tell you that I've been involved in the world of AI for 25 years now and started the world's first privacy-focused AI lab in San Francisco called Zero about 19 years ago. And there's a lot I'd love to share about AI, but the only advice I can give that is guaranteed: do not try and run about 2 kilometers at this altitude from one event to another. It is an exceedingly bad idea. And if any of you have to go to hotels not close by, don't. It's a complete snarl. The best advice I can give. You know, my focus has been around how do we apply exponential technology, specifically AI and its interplay with Web3 and the infrastructure layers that come with it, to create a net positive impact on the humans that we intend to serve. I sit on the Mobility Council of BMW. I've served on the board of the Norwegian Refugee Council, which is a frontier refugee agency. And I always say it doesn't matter if it's Susan, the mother of 2, who buys an expensive BMW electric car, or if it's Rashida, who has escaped genocide in Syria and finds herself in a camp in Lebanon. The biggest opportunity, responsibility, and privilege that we have because of the access to technology that we have is for us to be able to apply it to affect both their lives in a deeply positive way. And I run Rainfall, which is the world's first self-sovereign AI company, where the AI belongs to each individual, builds a model for each individual, doesn't take their data off their device, and allows for their AI to transact on their behalf with privacy baked in, so that they can start to get the conveniences that AI can build for you, and at the same time start to create a revenue stream. My principal belief, I know many of us here share it, is that data is a fundamental human right, and any value that you can create from data must inure back to each human if it is a fundamental human right. And with Rainfall, we're creating a daily sustainable income without the loss of privacy for people from their own personal AI, so you can achieve true self-sovereignty.
Amazing. Thank you all. So I do have a question for the audience. How many of you use AI in your organization? Okay, that's amazing. That's amazing. So we're talking about the intersection of artificial intelligence and social innovation. So I would love to know, what is an example of the most impactful thing that you have seen artificial intelligence used in your organization? How has it brought impact? What are some of the ways that you actually use it?
happy to start. So one of the use cases that we've been working with, we often think of data with value, and AI obviously lives off data. We use examples where the personal intelligence models of Susan, who buys this expensive BMW, is obviously relevant to the retail world, right? So where she goes, where she buys coffee, her charging network, so on and so forth. But we're actually doing the same for Rashida, the refugee, where we've got an initiative which allows her data to be monetized in a deeply privacy-focused way. And while her data is not relevant, and this always comes up a lot, well, who cares about data of a refugee sitting in one of these camps? If you're AstraZeneca or Pfizer or Bayer, or you're building the next antibiotic or the next vaccine, guess where the next viruses or bacteria will show up and morph? On the streets of Mumbai, in refugee camps in sub-Saharan Africa. It's not going to be in Davos or New York. And so the data models from Rashida's life suddenly start to have a lot of value if you're running preclinical trials at these large companies, right? Building the next antibiotic or the next vaccine. And if you can now do it without loss of privacy, and you can do it in a way where what they pay goes back to her, now you've applied AI in a way that it really unpacks the power and I think the responsibility of what it can do. And for us, it's about the right interplay of AI, the blockchain, cryptocurrency, and it's not about, oh my God, what is the value of Bitcoin today, right?
So I can also jump in. I'll talk about our work before AI and the fact that we are using AI to scale the impact we are having in Brazil. So basically, we use, we help companies, organizations, and schools to implement affirmative action programs, right? So affirmative actions are the basically measures that are directed to unmarginalized people, so we can basically take this group and implement a certain action to retain more women or Black or Indigenous, or build a specific program for a target group to basically accelerate equality. So this is affirmative action. So our idea is like, what if we can use AI to scale affirmative actions and to scale safe spaces so people can talk more, because a lot of people don't feel comfortable in talking about their identities or, the questions they may have about a lot of different issues that can be polarizing. And we've been training more than 700,000 employers. And for those employers we've been training and the companies we are actually in, we see that those who are trained, and we can reduce, for example, the turnover rates, because employers can see themselves in the materials, in the products. They engage more when they are in a more diverse ecosystem. So now with AI, because our use of AI is very recent, we want to expand and scale those impacts, those cases. So what we are doing now with Google.org is that we are taking to the schools we already train. We train 100,000 professors in Brazil, and we go to the classrooms. And basically, we offer them the content about the Brazilian history, but also with Black and Indigenous references. Because just to give you some thought about Brazil, it's easier for us to get more content about the French Revolution or other histories about Europe than the ones from Brazil. And that means, by the end of the day, dropout rates, because people don't see themselves in their history. They don't feel like, why should I learn only about things that doesn't relate to my reality? And we had this report from professors. That's not me saying. So we have studies that show that when we can implement a model where they can see themselves portrayed in the contents, we can actually retain more their attention. We can engage more them. So we are using AI as a model to create those safe spaces where professors can ask our AI, how can I produce my classroom planning as a classroom planner, for example, and she's helping the professors to actually get more references in the classrooms to give to those students, but those references that are local references. So by doing that, the impact we want to have is to basically reduce the dropout rates from the students, which are big, especially across Black and Indigenous from North to South Brazil. And by reducing dropout rates and also turnover in companies, because this model serve for schools, for companies, or civil society as a whole, we potentially can unlock the growth Brazil and the world can have.
Following you two is pretty tricky. You guys got some good examples. So, we're in mental health, and I think everybody knows that we're in the middle of a mental health crisis globally, right? Paired with a loneliness crisis globally. And so, one of the big questions that we're asking is around access. How do we make sure we help as many people as possible? So, when AI comes up for us, one of the first questions people ask is, "Oh, are you developing a bot?" Right? And my response is, no, there's going to be a lot of for-profits out there that are going to develop bots. So it's a mixed market find. We are a nonprofit. That is not going to be something we're going to do for a couple reasons. One is because one of the most frequent questions we get asked by our texters is, "Are you real?" And 70% of our texters are young, but any age, and people are reaching out anything from anxiety, PTSD, eating disorders, suicide, homicide, all of it. And are you real? They want another human on the other side of the line. And then when we look at our volunteer research, we find that our volunteers say that over 90% of them, their mental health and well-being is improved as a result of working with us, part of the purpose of helping others, part of our training. And over 98% take those skills back and support family, friends, colleagues, strangers in their community. So if we take away that human connection, then we take away the community resilience. We take away the strengthening of those communities, especially communities that are marginalized and don't have access to other resources. Over 2/3 of the people that reach out to us have no other mental health supports available to them. So it is of critical importance that the people we're working with have those skills. So where are we actually using AI? We are using it to help give our volunteers superpowers and to help make sure that our texters are getting the best possible support. And where that really starts for us is with the research, right? Because humans would take years to be able to dive through the millions of de-identified conversations. Privacy, we can talk about that. Privacy and people being able to know that they're able to share things with us safely and securely is of critical importance. But that research, we need AI to be able to dive in and get those insights quickly and get more insight. We're getting insights on the quality of conversations that nobody in the sector has, and then sharing those insights. How do we make this better with others? But a really tangible example I'll give is we're working with the CDC right now to identify suicidal ideation by age, by demographic, in a way that will also be able to predict changes, because language is changing. How young people talk about their mental health or ways that they may be considering ending their lives is changing. This data does not exist. When it exists, it is hand-coded records years old, and this is a way that we can help governments and agencies all over the world to save lives and identify when new methods are because that is identifying and removing or reducing the methods of suicide is one of the only proven ways to actually save lives. So that's a tangible example that you ask about impact. It's both the lives we're touching, but it's about how we influence systems.
Thank you. Appreciate what you have shared. I know the question is about the usage of AI. I'm going to say something a bit different and controversial. I'm going to talk about this thing in 3 ways: the past, present, and future. In terms of the application, I was at the Palantir, the AI company, who's doing a lot of military use and things like that, right? I was looking to the presentation. I was a researcher in the 80s and the 90s. Many of the research work then are actually being used by them right now to the what they call the ontology, which is the knowledge-based system, symbolic AI system. Those work are starting to come back. You can go and listen to the presentation tomorrow. And I was a researcher, and I was in an AI startup from Stanford University called Trilogy, which is one of the pioneer in AI 30 years ago. And we deployed many, many big complex AI system called configuration. So there was impact then, but it's very narrow. But it's highly specialized into the telecom, into the computer industry and financial services. So that I'll call the past, right? And some of them are still being used today, and they're making a comeback. If you ask me a use case of most successful AI application, I would say Google search, right? Since the day Google was formed, it's really an AI algorithm company. They don't call it that way. They invented knowledge graph. Every day we are using it. We don't even know. It's really affecting all the decisions we make. Now, talking of the future, I just published this book last year called AI for Humanity, Building a Sustainable AI for the Future. As I mentioned in my opening, I said that while we are all looking for applications of AI, we need to take a step back. We need to rethink the philosophy and the relationship between AI and human being. And that answers some of the questions you asked, right? If you don't go back and understand this, whatever we do for AI is going to lead to a lot of harms. There's a lot of benefits. There'll be a lot of profit to be made. But if you don't rethink the relationship, something will be very troubling, and I'm worried. And do not just listen to me. I think thought leadership is important. Listen to Geoffrey Hinton, who just won the Nobel Prize. He was a Turing Award winner. I just ran into Yann LeCun just now. He's also a Turing Award winner at one of the events, right? These are the thought leaders who knows deep learning and AI very well, and they are thinking at the philosophical level, and they are worried. Not because there's no benefit, there are plenty of benefit in AI, but we need to understand what is AI. So I'm not going to give you the answer, but I want to throw one question back to you all. In the history of humankind, of all the technology we ever invented, how is AI different from all those technologies? Have you ever asked this question before? How is it different from the plane, the mobile phone, the computer? We have invented the wheel, right? We have invented all those. Why is AI so special? Why are we so worried about existential threat? Why is Elon Musk worried about? So that is a question we need to ask us. What is AI? Also read the United Nations report called Governing AI for Humanity. That was published in September. Please read through that. There are a lot of interesting insight inside there that tell us what it is. But one thing I know for sure, we still do not know what it is. Because we do not know what it is, that's why we need to be really cautious while we are looking into application. And the details are there. I'm sure you can go check GPT and find out on your own. My job is to raise the question for you to think about it, or you can read my book if you want to. Thank you.
Camila, if I can quickly add, I love the context from all three of you because, I'm a big believer in the idea that if we believe that the A in AI stands for the artificial replacement of the human, then we're going down the wrong path. The A stands for augmentation. And if it's augmented intelligence, then we're going down the right path, right? It makes us faster, stronger, better, more effective at work, does our tasks better in our private lives, helps us in ways that we can. And I think it goes down to the philosophical underpinning of, why we build AI. And then equally, I think one of the challenges in the space that you're working, Dena, is that the reason the agents and the bots are so difficult to do, especially when it comes to things like mental health, is we're all individuals. We're all different. And to have a global North data model training a large language model over 50 years is not going to give you the kind of hyper-personalization that we all are. We are, after all, individuals. And until we can change that model and make sure that the AI represents each of us in a responsible way, then we're not going to have indigenous wisdom. We're not going to have regional wisdom. And at the end of the day, what narrative works for me but doesn't work for you is a very individual thing. And you cannot just have a bot tell you, do these 4 things and maybe you won't feel like jumping off a bridge. Like, that is just ridiculous, right? So really powerful, really great examples, but agreed.
Thank you.
Can I add something to what you say?
Please do.
Sorry about this, because he's saying something very important, right? The topic today is about a transformative business model, right? So we're thinking of using AI to change the business model, right? But have you ever thought about we need to come up with the right business model, or called impact model, for AI development itself? We need to fix the AI problem first before we talk about using it to change anything, right? So if you look at OpenAI, it was so controversial from non-profit to profit. Look at all the saga, all the scandals, These are all the things that is happening right now, right? So I think we need to rethink, should we have the right business model or impact model for AI? Again, which is linked back to the topic today, yeah.
No, I think that is the topic. Like, how do we build for humanity? Like, we have these big companies, and we know that it's whatever data you put in is what you get out. So how do we ensure that we put the right data in, that the data is inclusive, that we're making sure that, there's very sensitive things that are going on? How do we protect people's privacy? Like, what are y'all seeing in this? Like, I would love to have your comments too.
First of all, we're not putting anything in ChatGPT or any of the external, we're not giving any of our data to any other company, right? Because we have to protect it, and we make sure that when we're looking at large language models, we are looking at our models. And really, as we scale and grow, especially as we expand into Latin America, we have to be very, very careful about how we do that, because for precisely the points that you said. But actually, one of the things we discussed me saying up here is, in talking about the companies that we all have to work with as nonprofits that are trying to create significant social impact in the world, we have to work with them, but we also have to be cautious. And there's a lot of companies right now that are offering funding for Gen AI specifically. And so a lot of nonprofits are starting with they're jumping for the application, and really what they're doing is jumping for the money, because we all need funding to accomplish our missions. And I would say my encouragement is take a deep breath and talk to somebody to ask, is that really the right thing for me? What is the why, what you were talking about, right? How do we start with the why? Why are we doing this? What are we trying to accomplish? Not start with Gen AI that uses a lot of energy and uses a lot of water and can guide you down the wrong path and may make you hire a whole new team and can get dangerous pretty fast if you're not thinking about bias and you don't have the right people on the team to think about the ethics of how to do it, let alone how to continue to fund that work, when maybe regular machine learning is better for you, or maybe an Excel spreadsheet is better for you, which sometimes you have to find what is the right technology for the problem. So don't get sucked in, because also they never provide the amount of money that you actually need to do the work. And they certainly don't provide the amount of money needed to do it long-term and sustain that work. And don't give that. Yes.
One of the additional, I completely agreed. And I think I like to wear rose-tinted glasses in the way I see the world. And I just feel like in so many ways, we are headed down a regulatory framework that is going to get harder and harder for the traditional big tech approach of, I'm giving you convenience, therefore you're the product. But more importantly, I think there's the school of public opinion is headed in that direction as well. And, I've been not just building, but investing in the space for a long time. And I always say, average creators and average investors follow trends. Really good creators and really good investors lead trends. But the best creators and investors in the world, they read the socio-cultural tea leaves. They smell zeitgeist. And I think zeitgeist is suggesting that people are starting to wake up to the idea of privacy and owning their data and parlaying convenience for being the product is starting to change. And I think that is what will put the pressure from both sides on large companies, that they can't continue operating with the same model. And whether they incentivize with, very substandard amounts of capital, but they are providing, if you want to build an AI, function, it's very easy to build on the APIs available to you, right? And so therefore, it's so important to have privacy-focused frameworks available for the future. And I think we're getting to that point of confluence where solving for these bigger challenges and not just your bottom line is starting to become more and more relevant. And the questions being asked, not just of, you both mentioned it, the Silicon Valley approach of what are you building and how are you building it? It's more about the why are you building it? And even more importantly, that philosophical underpinning of who are you building for? And so if you can't think about building for the person who's vulnerable or Susan or Rashida, then you'll just build this cool new thing with this cool new tool I've found, and then it's a solution trying to find a problem. And unfortunately, the capital markets have deeply, deeply rewarded these solutions looking for a problem. And so, once it starts changing all the way through, we'll start building to solve the real problems, and we'll do it at scale.
My answer is, I think, what you're working on, decentralized AI, is definitely in the right direction. And when I say that, why I say that you need to tap into the greed of the Web3, that is only accelerator you got on steroid to overcome the dominance of the big tech, right? So that is definitely a right direction. But of course, the Web3 also needs to have your own governance, proper governance, so that is the investor are well taken care of, and get back to your benevolence of the leader who actually started the startup. I think you look like you're the right person to be making it happen as well, right?
Can I just add one point from a perspective from Brazil? Obviously, privacy is very important for us, and obviously you're looking at that and working with cryptography and everything. But I also want to point out a problem of infrastructure, right? Because obviously, we have the water problem concerning like the AI use and everything. But in Brazil, for example, there is like this huge opportunity to take this moment to build more infrastructure, so more people can have access even to build their own LLMs or their own AI in order to put their knowledge there and somehow monetize with that, obviously with data privacy. And I think we are in a pivotal moment where, obviously, if we are here in Davos, we can talk about this as like, oh, we can build that that model where everybody can build their LLMs. But also, when you look at the Global South, we need to solve a lot of different problems, also to get people used to use an LLM. So most of the professors, actually, we are training, they use Debbie as their first LLM they are getting in touch with. So just to frame that we are not in the same pace in the usage of AI. Obviously, I think investors that are basically looking at the zeitgeist or are ahead of others are very important. But I also want to recruit those who can see this unequal framework and try to see like what the potential markets that we need to invest more they need in terms of infrastructure, in terms of training more people so they are more familiar with those models. Because if they are not even familiar, if I'm talking to an indigenous community from a very remote area, they think that's evil and they don't even want to know about that. And maybe potentially if we could use AI to somehow identify that knowledge and try to build a way to perpetuate that language for the next generations, that could be a potential use why we are using AI for. So just to basically frame that we are not in the same pace in terms of AI usage, especially in the Global South.
Let's do it.
Yes. Come and invest on us.
Yeah, so how can big tech companies support some of the initiatives that you're doing? Like, is it possible to work together or?
Yes, I'm just jumping in quickly. I mean, obviously, big techs can invest, but do that in not in a hierarchical way. In a way like, oh, I'm giving you money, give me your data. I give you like a tiny money for you and like a few cents, and give me your data. It's not an equal and fair relationship. But I think we can build a sort of win-win relationship where we can see what are the needs, and we can obviously deploy an amount of capital that is decent for what we need to change, the challenges we have. So we are here. So whatever person can be helpful, we are here. We received like an investment from Google.org, and we are seeking for potential investors to match this investment. We have in Brazil, but luckily they actually had a decent transaction with us, and we are seeking for more decent transactions. But it's not only about big techs. I think I want Amit to invest on us. I want to every single person, because we have the power of individuals as well. And then I wanna claim this power as well, because obviously big tech and big money is very important. But I think if every one of us can invest a little bit of more of our time and our resources towards the challenges we have, instead of only fear or inertia, I think it can change this equation.
I'll add to that. In the last few years, I've been working with the big tech, Google, Microsoft in Asia. In a very pragmatic sense, if you want them to actually do more to contribute, is to tap into the competition between them. So, for example, I give a lot of talk to Google because they want to be showing up as doing more responsible AI. Of course, AWS will want to do the same, so that's where you feed into their competition, right? At the same time, you tap into the Web3, which is a totally different decentralized community, will give you a totally different source of funding and capital to do certain things. Of course, that will also require a type of self-governance to make sure it's done right, so that it's not fully 100% greed, basically. So I think there are ways to tap into that, and just have to use some common sense to tap into what they're thinking and the relationship. Yeah. So that's how I felt.
Yeah, I mean, look, the big corporations can be great partners, right? I just want to warn people to not get attracted to a certain grant and dive in kind of ahead of their skis a little bit. But we have really benefited from partnerships with AWS, with Google.org, and it's about going into those relationships with your eyes wide open and knowing how that you can protect your users and your data, and how you can be in relationship with people, because they are at the forefront. They're making the investments there, and they have great teams that really care about our social impact. And so we want to work well with them and encourage them to do more, so that they can continue to partner with us to help us all achieve our vision, our missions.
Yeah, and I think that I agree with everything you all said. I think everyone behaves the way they do because of incentives, right? And the incentives have created a pattern, and we're all creatures of habit, and so we live in our comfort zones, and big tech is living in its comfort zone, right? And I think that between regulations and school of public opinion, these changes will come. I think it's also the bias of how you see markets, right? So if you take the refugee market, it's not a market for anyone, right? But there are close to 100 million refugees. There's close to 200 million displaced people. If you're a startup and I told you there's a 300 million total addressable market that no one is touching, you'd be crazy not to look at it, right? So it's just about rethinking how you look at different people. And then the one thing I've learned a lot with big tech, big companies, any place, yes, they're a brand, yes, they're an organization, they're run by processes, but they're run by people. And there is a sea change starting to happen, the people inside these organizations, right? And I feel like that's where the change will come. It'll come from inside. We tend to celebrate the heroes. I mean that in a gender neutral way. So it's always like, what does Elon think? Oh my God, what did Mark Zuckerberg just do? What was his talk with Joe Rogan? And it's like, yes, I get it. They're the spokespersons, they're the heroes. But there's a lot of incredible people, driving change from within. And I feel like, when you tap into the right people there, I don't see big tech as evil. I just see the incentives as having taken them down a path that perhaps doesn't align with each self-sovereign individual.
I want to say one thing about the big tech, right? I mean, they're all developing AI. You are a startup doing that. I mean, the fundamental question is that what is the purpose of us developing AI, right? Now, other than making a lot of money, right? All of us want to do that. Is there other purpose? Have we thought through? And have we thought through in terms of ramification if we use it for a weapon, which is really happening right now, or we use it for cognitive war, which is going to mean that it's not going to spread a lot of information for democracy, or if we're just chasing AGI, assuming that there's 10% chance or even 1% chance something could go wrong, is that the purpose we want? I think these are questions that we have to ask. And we need to ask the big tech company, you want to achieve AGI, why do you want to do that? Is it you want to achieve $10 trillion in valuation? Or is it you want to do, I mean, you have to do that, that's good, but you need to ask yourself that question, right? And these are employees in the company. If all of them have conscience, the collective conscience is going to override the CEO, right? For example. Yeah. I think these are fundamental philosophical questions we need to ask. And I think this is the point right now. If you look at the architecture, right, we talk about data. After data, there's information. After information, there's knowledge. After knowledge, there's wisdom. After wisdom, there's purpose. Everything from data, information, knowledge, AI can handle that right now. It's been elevated. We need to figure out what is the wisdom. What is the philosopher of Greece or the philosopher in China or in India have been thinking about? These are things that we humanity need to go and recover from that. And if Fred is here, he'll be telling you about the book of change. Unfortunately, he has to leave earlier. I'm speaking on his behalf. I 100% believe in what he's talking about. These are things that we humanity need to go back and ask, hey, what do we want? Because this AI is going to, assuming that he's really going to be smarter than us, like many people has predicted, right? Before we go about doing it, let's think through, right? And also spend time convincing the big tech, you have some responsibility, at least to think through it before you start doing it, right? Yeah, so that's how I would like to share my perspective.
I think that's all, something that we all need to think about, right? And I could almost end it there. But I would love, if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask them. Does anyone have any questions? Yes.
Thank you very much. I joined a little bit late, so I apologize if this was already addressed. But I'm very interested in your thoughts on the following. We've been working with the AI as a civic AI. How do we use large language models and generative AI as a listening tool, a citizen listening tool to reimagine education, for example. And we have projects, one of them is called School of Possibilities, designed with high schoolers to listen to them what kind of imagination or learning they would like to imagine. These are new models. We did it in Europe. It's a AI Act, very regulated. It's very challenging to do and not easy to get funding because companies are not interested in civic AI in general. So I'd just like to hear your thought. We think it's a huge potential to reimagine the way we are in the world. Would like to hear some of your thoughts where you saw some other amazing examples in these directions. Thank you.
I think that's what two of you are doing effectively, right?
So excited.
To me, that sounds like what you're doing, isn't it?
Yeah, we actually have a report where we used AI to dive in and listen to young people about what's their coping skills. Because part of de-escalating folks from a really hard moment, we believe, is listening to them, relating to them, and seeing what helps them to cope, what has helped them previously in other times to cope. And the reality is a lot of mental health is telling people what they should do or how they should do it, rather than listening to the voice of young people to then create this, or anybody, to then create the solutions to meet them where they are. And I do think that that is absolutely an opportunity for AI, because we can listen more broadly and get a more nuanced sense of that helps to really refine where people are and really create those messages that can relate to folks.
Yeah, I completely resonate, because for me, AI is a tool, and we need to increase participation, local participation from local actors, to actually say out and loud what they want and to craft their own personalized and customized way for their needs. It's not about us telling people what they need, but about them addressing a need they have and using AI as a tool to address this need. And for us, the usage of AI is very, very recent, although we've been working with, again, racial literacy and now racial and digital literacy in Brazil. But the cool thing is that we actually had a lot of time to listen to people. So we've been listening to the needs of professors. So they were like, we need more tools to help decrease the dropout rates, or employers that want to increase their the groups of minoritized people there, but they are huge in turnover. So we have those needs there. And obviously every company or every school will address that in a different way. But I think it's very civic to listen to their needs, obviously in their different contexts, and try to address that by after listening. So I really appreciate the work you're doing, because civic AI will come from initiatives like ours, where we listen to people and make them to be more proactive to address their needs using AI as a tool.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I think these are very good questions. I'm going to go back to a basic question I mentioned earlier, right? I mentioned about rethinking our relationship between human and AI. In fact, today, whenever you're using AI today, it is listening to you all the time, subliminally. And you are learning from it subliminally, just like social media. And in fact, you are also teaching it subliminally. And it is teaching you subliminally. You understand that way? The relationship is different. It's not like you're talking to a bag, right? You're using a bag. It's not a tool anymore. It's a tool. It's a technology that is talking to each other. How you behave is going to be reflected inside there. Yeah. It's just a mirror. We are the one providing the data through the interaction, as well as from all the legacy data. So in terms of the civic thing, first of all, government should be doing it if to make sure it's properly governed, and to build sovereignty AI, which is like what Jensen Huang has mentioned. Every country would have that to take care of its own citizen under the law of the constitution of the country. Of course, we also need to do civic AI for humanity. That's what the United Nations and WEF is all about. That's why we're here. Yeah.
You've got to talk about this, Amit, because this is about the customization, right? Like you're saying, like, and just the customization where we have so many, think of school right now, because we have to have a ton of people in class. You teach things one way, but everybody learns differently. Right? And that's what, and same thing, whether it's mental health or whether it's neurological differences, so that people learn differently. So I just want to say I love what you're talking about, and I love it's a great example, it feels like, of people having the ability to have that customized approach of what helps them.
Yeah, I'll just quickly add, the idea of self-sovereign AI is that it's the representation of each person. So it's one thing to be able to listen and learn. It's another thing to be able to listen and learn and apply it to each person uniquely. And I think that's the challenge. I mean, from a civic AI perspective, absolutely you can do some really interesting listening, whether it's through NLP, whether it's voice, whether you're looking at patterns. You should ideally apply concepts like differential privacy so that you don't, you're not listening to a particular person and then that person gets identified, because it can be used in a negative way. At the end of the day, it's also what your trained model is doing with that. And I think this is where we see a lot of challenges, totally different conversation in the media space, right? Like there's a lot of listening happening today on social media by AI, and it is being used to deliver content to you. And so you can apply that from a civic AI perspective. But if that content is creating a bigger echo chamber for me because I'm only seeing, Trump content or anti-Trump content or pro-Brexit or anti-Brexit, then the listening is actually the problem. And that's why we're so focused on the idea that instead of the idea of creating these 5 or 6 super brains, that's not the world we live in. We're 6 billion connected humans with 6 billion individual brains. We have 2 billion more people that we need to connect and connect responsibly. And when we come together in a conversation like this, we might act as kind of one brain, but then we go our separate ways, right? Because we are deeply individual. So our AI needs to be deeply individual for especially the use cases you talk about as well. And if that's the listening we do, then you're listening about what is hyper-personalized and individual about me. And so you can also cater back to me in that way, rather than showing me content, for example, that just reinforces the bias, rather than making a more neutral set of content available.
Yeah, and I think we have time for one quick question and one quick answer.
Okay. It may not be a quick answer, so we can talk about it afterwards. Oh, yeah, that's fine. So I completely agree with you on incentives driving behavior that may not be ideal for society. And then you mentioned that AI has been around for over 30 years.
70 years.
70 years. So what makes you optimistic that this is a moment of change in time and we won't just continue to repeat the pattern of bad incentives? Because as an individual, like, yes, I can create change. I can think about this deeply, but I'm not the CEO of these big tech companies. So being around leaders, what is making you optimistic outside of these conversations that something is changing?
I love that question.
Besides the rose-tinted glasses, I think if you look at the iterations of AI that you mentioned, in many ways, AI happened to us and we didn't realize it. Social media is a good example. Your feed is the way it is because of AI, right? And generative AI was the first time that we intentionally interacted with AI knowingly. And what it did was it really uplifted and created a new awareness of this thing called AI. Within our echo chambers, we've known about AI for a long time and we speak of it in different narrative. But when you think about the mainstream, my 76-year-old mother living in India who talks about this, that is a sea change that has happened, right? And when that happens, you look at any movements in time. 95 for the internet was limited. There was a small bunch of people in Silicon Valley that were using it in ways that the average person was not. And we've reached that mainstream moment. And it's that mainstream moment that triggers a lot of awareness and with it, opportunities for incentives. And even if those opportunities for incentives, I think oftentimes are driven by the narrative of fears, it unlocks the opportunities for incentives. And again, that's why I caveat with my rose-tinted lenses, but I think we're reaching that inflection moment. And we've reached at different points. Mobility was the same thing. And we're there now. And that's why it's such an optimistic time, I think.
Can I add to that?
Yes.
I think the question, why we're optimistic or so-called pessimistic, either way, right, is because there's really a paradigm shift that's happening now. When I was doing AI in the 80s and 90s, I was doing knowledge engineering. It's very difficult to learn knowledge from human. I have to do it manually and put into AI into languages like Lisp and Prolog to make intelligent. So I'm the one who curate with my ethics. But today you're using machine learning, it's different because it's doing at such a scale that is with so much computing. Second thing, why there's a paradigm shift. If you listen to Jensen in the CES talk, he has a chart that talk about there is a shift in computational model. We used to write program and write the algorithm, then we manipulated the data. Today, you are taking all the data and you are generating the algorithm. So that shift in fundamental shift is a totally different beast we're dealing with. It's a good thing. It solved my problem 40 years ago when I was doing AI. It was very painful, but they pay me a lot of money to do that. I have to be very good at knowledge engineering. I'm very good at talking to everybody. I can extract your knowledge and practice to do that. But today, it's all automated. And in fact, it's such a large scale that is crazy. Third, the paradigm shift is AI by design since the day it was created by John McCarthy. He invented the language called Lisp, L-I-S-P. That is the first AI language. He's the father of AI. That language is a language that allows you to self-modify. It's called homo-iconic languages. That is a fundamentalism in AI. And if you look at the machine learning model today, it's self-evolving, right? It's self-learning. And anything self-evolving learning is kind of becoming digitally organic. You will mutate. If you mutate, nobody really know what it can become. It's just like a virus. And if you're understanding this fundamental model, we need to be ready for the surprises. Don't listen to me. Read the book by Eric Smith and Henry Kissinger, right? You'll learn, you may evolve, and it may come back and surprise you, right? And the ChatGPT moment was a surprise, like what you have mentioned. I never thought 40 years ago I'll be talking to an AI that is so smooth. It wasn't possible at the time, but it really happened. I think that moment really changed the ball game because suddenly 8 billion people can talk to it. Grandmother, children. That is a fundamental shift that's what I call a paradigm shift. So it's good to be optimistic. With great power come with great responsibility. I'm worried, frankly speaking.
Can I just add something
Please, I would love to hear from
very, very quick. So why do I keep optimist? So I also invite you to see that question as a reflection, like a very inner reflection. So I'm the first generation from my family that had access to university, that has access to an event like that, and is basically spreading the word across equality and coming from the global south. And there is no way for me not to be optimist because that's actually my fuel to go forward. And basically, AI is only a tool to basically scale this and try to spread this message for other people to feel also filled with optimism and keep going forward. I like to see that obviously we had like the technical background and approach, but also in a very humanistic way. We need optimism as a fuel to keep going forward. And another thought is about polarization. Some people, at least the people we actually deal with in Brazil, either from professors or companies, they think that polarization is something new. But when you look at Brazilian history, for example, just to give a very narrow example, we had slavery in Brazil in almost 400 years, right? Polarization was already there. But now, I mean, I'm not saying that society is perfect, but when you look backwards, like 130 years before, I couldn't even be here. So there is no way for us not to be optimistic that we can use tools. Obviously, I'm not trying to romanticize the story. There are a lot of hurdles, there are a lot of odds, but we can use tools for the good of the society. And I think optimism is the fuel we need to keep going.
We're very glad you're here.
In fact, the data that came out actually talk about developing country are far more optimistic for AI than the developed country.
Because it ultimately distributes power, right? Like
Yes, because
while it's concentrating, it's also distributing.
Yeah, we have
spreading
so
it.
many hurdles, so we need to be optimists.
Yep. And ultimately, it still comes down to people, even though they're big companies, and you're in good company.
We all are. Thank you so much. This was such an amazing conversation.
Dena, to what you just said about people, Ram Dass is one of my favorite philosophers, and he said at the end of the day, we're just walking each other home.
Thank you for
Thank
being
you.
Yes. Thank you, everyone.
Obrigada.
Okay, it's also late.
Thank you very much.
Great.